It seems to be the sexy thing to do is to make dollar predictions on where silver is going to go in price. But I have always said that that is the wrong consciousness when investing in silver. For so long as there is a dollar figure for the price of silver, we have not reached silver's ultimate value. We are investing in silver for the day that silver cannot be bought for debt-based money. That silver will not be available for purchase because no one will want the dollar. After all, who in their right mind would give up real silver when the world's fiat currencies are collapsing into disarray? More and more money will be chased after less and less real goods. I believe silver will be one of the main beneficiaries of this. Since we cannot use the dollar to measure the value of silver in the next paradigm, I have always looked to ratio investing. Ratio investing simply takes away the confusion of the dollar and measures asset against asset. Probably the most common one is the gold to silver ratio. Right now it takes 51 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. This is a good way of judging relative value against assets. Perhaps one of my most favorite ratios to value silver is that throughout all of history, and even for 2/3 of the world today, 1/10 of an ounce of silver has been the equivalent to 1 day's worth of hard human labor. We saw this as Roman soldiers were paid 1 denarius, or the equivalent of a silver dime per day that they served the emperor. We saw this in Sun Tzu's Art of War, where Sun Tzu said that it would take 1,000 ounces of silver to run a 100,000-man army a day. We saw this at the turn of the century, where factory workers were paid a dime a day. We even see this in the world today, where it is common knowledge that 2/3 of the world lives off of less than $2 a day, which is less than 1/10 of an ounce of silver. Knowing that our debt-based monetary system is mathematically going to fail, as they have to constantly increase the amount of debt every year in excess of the debt and interest accrued the year before. At some point there will be either a massive default on the debt, or they will simply keep printing money, so much so that the money actually has no value. One way or the other, the paradigm ends. What will be the value of silver in the next paradigm? I believe after the dollar paradigm fails, silver investors will be able to enjoy the greatest real estate investments ever since the Louisiana Purchase. Today I decided to take a look at the Louisiana Purchase in terms of silver, so people could start to understand the value of silver in an era without infinite money. When a government is dependent upon the bankers for money, they, and not the leaders of the government, control the situation, since the hand that gives is above the hand that takes. Money has no motherland. Financiers are without patriotism and without decency. Their sole object is gain. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1815. Most people did not realize that Napoleon's fight was not a fight of conquering other nations, but that of a national leader trying to reclaim sovereignty from bankers. Since Napoleon refused to go into debt to bankers to fund his war, he sold assets to raise funds for the war. In 1803, Napoleon struck a deal with Thomas Jefferson to effectively double the size of America with the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase encompassed 529 million acres of land that would eventually become 15 states of the United States. Louisiana was sold for 60 million francs and 18 million in debt forgiveness. Since this deal was done in gold, each 20-franc gold coin has 0.187 ounces of gold in it. 78 million in francs was the equivalent of 729,300 ounces of gold, or 22 tons of gold. But I wanted to find out what that was in terms of silver. So 729,300 ounces of gold at the classic 1:16 gold to silver ratio worked out to 11,668,800 ounces of silver. So if we took the 529,920,000 acres of the Louisiana Purchase and divided it by the 11,668,800 ounces of silver, that would actually work out to 45 acres per ounce of silver. But I wanted to double check that, because that seemed like an incredible number. So I looked on Wikipedia, and in Wikipedia said that the Louisiana Purchase was done for $15 million. Well, if we know that the constitutional silver dollar back then was 0.7735 ounces of silver per dollar, that worked out to 11,602,500 ounces of silver. So again, taking the same number of 529,920,000 acres of the Louisiana Purchase and divided by 11,602,500 ounces of silver, that again worked out to 45 acres per ounce of silver. But I looked a little further than that. I've actually seen that there's about 22 billion ecologically productive acres of land on Earth. That 22 billion acres is comprised of about 3.3 billion acres of arable cropland, 8.4 billion acres of pasture land, 10 billion acres of forest land. And the best estimates I've seen of silver is that there are about 1 billion ounces of silver above ground. That would put that same ratio of 22 acres per ounce of silver. So maybe we don't get to 22 or 45 acres per ounce of silver, But can we buy 1 acre of land for 1 ounce of silver? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, especially when you know that the gold to silver ratio has a very good chance of actually hitting a 1-to-1 gold to silver ratio, since 95% of all the gold that's ever been mined is still being treasured somewhere, and 95% of all the silver that's ever been mined has been destroyed through industrial use. So let's say the average acre of land costs about $10,000 today. Some places it's much, much higher, but just on average, let's say $10,000 for an acre of land. Without a Federal Reserve supporting mortgage rates, and a banking system and a governmental system totally dependent upon higher and higher property prices, when that paradigm collapses, the price of land will drop significantly. During that same paradigm shift, the value of real tangible assets, such as silver, will rise significantly, as more and more fiat money chases after fewer and fewer goods. Now, people have said that real estate is real property, but the value of property, as I've shown in 30 Reasons to Get Out of Real Estate into Real Assets, the value of real estate is totally dependent upon the credit markets and has very little to do with the actual use of the property, especially since most real estate is not productive land. So I think there could be a very strong case that we could hit a 1-to-1 silver to acre ratio in a post-dollar paradigm world. Now, I can hear people crying, Chris, this is ridiculous, totally different time, totally different place. But I ask people, what would your house be worth if we didn't have 30-year mortgages at 3.9% financing? Or we didn't have a functioning economy? Or we didn't have a functioning currency? Or the jobs were even worse than they are today? Or nations or states were desperate for capital? What would your house be worth in terms of silver? We are nowhere near the bottom of the housing market, and we're nowhere near the top of silver, and that there's a huge gap to fill. So whether we actually get to 45 acres per ounce of silver, I doubt it. But it shows that we are very far away from where we are today on the true value of where silver can actually go. But this does make me hopeful that we are on the right track. Think about the hundreds of thousands of ounces of silver our community is starting to stack. I truly believe that we will be a historically significant community, and that we will be able to create an opposite consciousness society, and that through the ultimate exit strategy, we should be able to buy large tracts of land, and perhaps even our own country. Don't laugh. There's already projects in Honduras where they're giving away national sovereignty, and that it is not without the realm of possibility that some government may actually sell off some major lands and make incredible concessions to those that have the cash. Anything is possible in the next paradigm for those that are aware and prepared.